Okay, boys and girls, this is our real world problems, rates, and unit rates. So let's go over a few of these. So for the first one, it says water flowing from a faucet can fill a quarter of a tank in 3 minutes. How long does it take to fill the tank completely? So if you remember from class and from your notes, the best and easiest way is really to set these ratios and rates, set them up as equivalent fractions. So if we look at it, it says a quarter of a tank in 3 minutes. So make that into a fraction. So 1/4 of a tank, and it's really, when it says in 3 minutes, means per 3 minutes. So I'm going to put 3m for minutes, and it's 1/4 t for tank. And yes, you can have a fraction as a numerator or denominator, as we talked in class. This is going to equal, and if it says fill one tank, that's what it means. One tank with water. How long does it take? So what don't we know? We don't know how long. So how long is going to be our variable, which is x, because I have to put it as a denominator because 3 minutes is time also. And at the top it says one tank completely, so one full tank. So what we do is, there's several things. We could cross multiply as we talked in class, or one of the easier ways is to look at the relationship between the numerators here, because I have numbers in both of those. And if I look at that, I know that if I have a quarter to get to a full, to 1, I times it by 4. So I need to times the denominator by 4, and that's how we get 12 minutes. How long will it take then to fill 6 similar tanks? Well, same thing. Let me just move this up. We have a rate now, and our rate is 1 tank, and it takes 12 minutes. That's going to equal 6 tanks over x, which is how many minutes? I don't know how many minutes. So what we're going to do is multiply by 6. So you multiply the 12 by 6 and you get 72 minutes. The only thing is you need to convert that, if you read it, the rest of the question here, you need to convert to hours and minutes. I believe you guys can do that one. Okay, so the next one, number 2, let's go over that one. A car travels 135 miles on 5 gallons. Find the distance the car can travel if the car's tank contains 11 gallons of gas. Okay, so there's really technically 2 ways to do this problem. One way is we would cross multiply, and I'll set that up for you, and I'm not going to do the whole thing. And then we can also compare it to one unit rate, which is I'm going to show you how to do also. So the first way is, if you have 135 miles per gallon for 5 gallons. So remember, we put miles up top, 5 gallons, and this is if we would cross multiply. This will equal, we want to find the distance, so distance is x because miles is up top, equals 11 gallons. So what I would do is cross multiply. So you know what, I'm going to start working on this a little bit. So when you cross multiply, I like to work with the x first. So it'll be 5 times x is 5x. Write down your equals. 135 times 11. And I'm going to run out of room here, so I'm going to put a dot for times 11. So what we would need to figure out, and that's a multiplication dot. What you would need to do first is multiply 135 times 11. You'll get an answer, and then what you're going to need to do is divide by 5, and that will give you your answer. But the other way that we talked about in class, and it might be easier for some of you, is, let me just delete that, you set it up as a unit rate. So we have 135 miles for 5 gallons will equal, I don't know how many miles per 1 gallon. Remember, unit rate is 1. So I say to myself, oh, how did I get there? I divide by 5. So when you divide by 5, what you're going to get is, you're going to get 27. So 135 divided by 5 is 27. So we have 27. But that's 27 miles. It'll be per 1 gallon. That's our unit rate. So now we need to use that unit rate. So the next step would be to do this. Let me just delete this. So I have 27 miles per 1 gallon will equal, I don't know how much, over 11 gallons. How did I get there? Times by 11. So what you're going to do is times 27 by 11, and that's going to give you your answer. Whatever you get as that answer, I'm sorry, we have our unit rate here, you're going to need your unit rate to figure how far or how much gas the car uses for 216 miles. Okay, next one. Let's move on. So this one is distance. Now I'm going to make our triangle. And our triangle looks like this. You talked in class. It's in your class notes. Distance, speed, time. Okay, and remember, speed is the rate. So you have to remember that's important. So Karem drives his car 96 miles in 1.5 hours. If he continues to drive at this rate, how many miles will he travel in 2.5? So what you need to do, there's two things to do. First thing is this. The first step is to figure out in the first problem what his speed is, because we want to figure out our rate. So if you look at our model here, speed, if you put your finger over it, will equal d over t. So our rate will be equal, speed will equal d, which is 96 miles, over 1.5 hours. So I'm just going to put 1.5, because 1.5 means 1.5 hours. So when you do that, you're going to get your speed. So whatever that equals, that's going to help you then for the next problem. So it says then how many miles. So miles is distance. So that distance will equal whatever our speed is from the previous part, multiply it by our time, and our time is 2.5. And that's going to give you how far he traveled, which you would label in miles. Okay, let's move on. That's from the other one. Okay, so let's just go over a couple of these. So if you remember, for ones that have a table, I told you the best way to do this is to really make a chart. So the first one I'm going to skip. I think you guys know how to do that one. Let's do number 5. So number 5, what I would do is make a chart. So my chart, I'm going to do this. I'm going to put over on this side is going to be hours, and over here is going to be $sign for money. Let me just make it a little bigger. Okay, so the thing is, it says for the table, it says for the first 4 hours they charge $150. That means if you have 1 hour, that's $150. If you have 2 hours, it's still only $150. 3 hours, $150, and 4 hours is $150. So it doesn't matter if you use either rent it out for 1, 2, 3, or 4. It's going to be $150. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to write down 1 through 4 is $150. Then it says every additional hour is $45. So I need to get to 8 hours. So I have 1 through 4 is $150. Okay, hour 5 is going to be $45. Hour 6 is going to be $45. Hour 7 is going to be $45. Hour 8 is going to be $45. And what you need to do then is to add all that up, and that'll give you your answer. Going back to number 4 is almost the same thing, except we're using time and not hours. So remember, when I told you when you're using time, what you want to do is you want to show the hour actually, meaning this. If you're doing time and money, and I'm going to skip, well, it says 3 to 8, so it's over here from 9 to 5 is $3.50 per hour. So if we go 3 to 4, that's the first hour, it's $3.50. Then you do 4 to 5, it'll be $3.50. But then after that, 5 o'clock, 5 to 6 is going to be $7. 6 to 7 is going to be $7, and so forth. Okay, so the tricky one that we're going to do is, let me just delete this, is going to be average. Okay, so what we need to do first, it says a train moved at a speed of 90 miles per hour for the first 2 hours and slowed to 72 miles per hour for the next 30 minutes. Find the total number of miles. So what you need to do is, what I would do is, we use our triangle, distance, speed, and time. It says find the total number of miles. So we're going to use distance. So it says for the first 2 hours, I would set this up in 2 separate equations. So first one is d equals speed, which is 90, times 2, which is 2 hours, and that's going to give you 180. So the first part is 180 miles. The second part is going to be Then you slow to 72 miles, so it's D equals 72 times, it says next is 30 minutes. So 30 minutes is not a full hour, so you don't write 30. We have to write either a half or B 0.5 or 5/10, and that's a half hour. That will give you an answer. And then what you do is add those two up, and that'll give you the total number. So to calculate the average speed then is you get your total distance. So whatever you had in A, total distance. And what you're going to do is the average speed. So we need the average speed. So the speed is right there. So it's distance divided by time. So we're going to divide it by, so speed equals total distance divided by total time. So whatever the total time was. So the total time would be 2 hours plus 30 minutes, and I'll give that to you, is 2.5 because it's 2.5 hours. Okay, so I think the next ones you should be pretty good on. Just do your best. Oh, one other note. For number 7, you're going to compare the unit rates. So what you need to do is find the unit rate for A and unit rate for B. When you find the unit rate for A and B, then you're able to compare. And remember, you have to round your answers to 2 decimal places because we're talking about money. So it always goes to the hundreds. Okay, so let's just go over one of these problems. I think you could do these. Again, this is distance, speed, and time. Speed is rate. All right, so let's just look at the first one. Mike rides his horse for 30 miles in 150 minutes. What's the average speed? Okay, so we need to figure out speed. So it's going to be distance divided by time. So speed equals distance divided by time. So in here it says 30 miles. So I got my distance divided by, it says 150 minutes. The problem with that is our answer needs to be per hour. So 150 minutes is not an hour. You need to convert that into an hour. So you have to figure out how many 60 minutes are in 150. So it's going to be 2 hours, and then you have 30 minutes left over. But you need to either make it into a fraction or a decimal. I'm going to do a decimal, and then you could go ahead and divide that, and that will give you your miles per hour. Make sure you label it correctly. And yes, you can use a calculator, but as long as you show me your work and show me your equations and so forth, then that would be then that's more than fine that you can use a calculator.